Hey VC, it's Dave here. I thought I'd get on. There was a show some music. How's your spring going? It's trying to warm up here, and actually I kind of like it because we've been having more sunshine. But there was a record show here in town. Well, it was about a week ago, and I went over there to that. It was fairly small, but was still, it's always interesting to go look around. And I met up with a friend there. His name's Ken, and I don't know him real well, but I met him at the record show a couple record shows back. And he's from the town here, and he sells records. He sells them here, and he shows up in Dallas as well, and around the Dallas area, and he works real hard at it, for sure. You can tell just from looking at all the stuff that he is selling and that he's collected. And anyway, Ken, if you happen to see this, hello. But I kind of noticed him outside. He was talking to somebody, and I went on in. I thought I would kind of look around first, and did a short look. And I kind of had a feel of what I wanted to buy, which is either some classical or some jazz or something like that. And went over to a table and was looking around, and I kind of figured maybe it was his, because one of the things he does is he has, he always sells the stuff very moderately priced, and generally, sells a buck or so, under what everybody else has there. So he's always selling stuff there, and his stuff is always in pretty good condition, and a lot of it's pretty rare. But anyway, I picked up a couple of things there. This is a classical CD. It's by Emanuel Axe, Richard Stoltzman, and Yo-Yo Ma. Emanuel Axe plays the piano, Richard Stoltzman plays the clarinet, and Yo-Yo Ma plays the cello, which they're all three right there. And he has several different pieces on it. There's a piece by Brahms, and there's one by Beethoven, and the last piece is by Mozart. And as you might well imagine, it being a trio like that, with a clarinet, a piano, and a cello, it's just overall pretty pleasant music to listen to, and indeed it is. I used to hear Emanuel Axe all the time on Performance Today, and a little bit of Stoltzman as well. And of course, Yo-Yo Ma. All three of these guys actually would be on Performance Today, so I was real happy to find something by them. Also found this CD by the Emerson Quartet, String Quartet, and looks like it's 3 violins and a cello, and it just has one long piece. There's broken up to four different pieces, but by Peter Tchaikovsky. And then there's another one on here by a composer that I'm unfamiliar with. His name is Alexander Borodin. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I don't know if you can see that or not. Alexander Borodin. But at any rate, again, being a chamber ensemble like that, it's just real pleasant music. Was happy to get it. Then I found this. This is, I do have some Miles Davis, but I don't have everything by him. And this was a 2 CD set with, an overview of everything he's done. In fact, I'd read on here, this CD contains 2 CDs, and starts out at his earliest period, and goes all the way up to, his later period, going up through, I don't know, Bitches Brew, and a little bit of everything. So I thought, golly, for the price I ought to pick it up, which I did. Should be real interesting. I haven't heard this one yet because I'm familiar with Miles, But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that it has that overview of his career going from his very early days into the latter period. And then I found this. I didn't know anything about this lady. Her name is Hilary Hahn, and on this it's violin concertos, and it contains some Brahms and Stravinsky, and it's with the Academy of St. Martin's in the Field with Sir Neville Marriner is the conductor, and again more pleasant classical music. The hype sticker on the front says America's best young classical musician, which you know, I'll take it. But I opened it up and I noticed that it was signed right here. And I'd wondered if maybe she actually did sign that, if I can find it right here, if she had signed that or not, or if that was just, you know, printed on there. And then I was looking and I saw this ticket stub over here, and I thought, well, maybe that's part of the artwork too. But then I was looking a little bit closer, and it happens to be from the Cowan Center right here in town. And so the date on this is April 17th, 2004. And I wasn't living here then, but I just thought that that was real interesting. They still have concerts and stuff over there, and in fact, by the way, this is a real nice piece of classical music too. I was over there last week, in fact, and Dan Rather was talking at the center. And I went to watch him talk, and it was really interesting to hear what he had to say. He started out, you know, talking about his early days working as a DJ at a radio station, and finally, you know, got on working in the news after Walter Cronkite, and you know, reported on the Vietnam War and various other things, and it was just interesting to hear him talk about his career. But also went by some more charity shops and that type thing, and I found this CD here by Lee Ritenour, jazz guitarist. The name of the CD is Westbound, which is kind of a play on words because it's there are a lot of songs on here by Wes Montgomery, the guitarist, and actually I found another CD by him, which is this one, Wes Montgomery. Real happy to get it. But Lee does some songs on here. He does a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs by Wes Montgomery on this album, and you can tell he's trying to, you know, play a little bit like Wes, like, you know, have his spirit on this CD, I guess you could say. And there's also one other song on here that it's got a little bit of a vocal on it, called Waiting in Vain by Bob Marley, which is a really good rendition of the Marley song. And overall, I've got some other Lee Ritenour albums, but I think this one here is one of his better ones for sure. It's smoother, and there's not as much, there's a little bit of variety on it, particularly with the reggae Marley song on it. But I just think it overall kind of flows together better. And like I said, it's got the Marley song, which you probably are familiar with that album. It's off of Exodus here. And Waiting in Vain is on it, along with the song Jammin'. A lot of other good songs. I mean, you can't hardly go wrong with any Bob Marley. But like I said, I also picked up this Compact Jazz CD by Wes Montgomery, and he plays with Jimmy Smith, Oliver Nelson, Klaus Olderman, and Don Sebesky does some of the orchestration on some of the album. Real smooth. If you're into guitar jazz, you can't hardly go wrong with Wes. And then I found this cassette here, which is a Sonny Rollins and Friends, and it's done like this Wes Montgomery album, actually, which is one of the reasons I picked it up. I would have liked to have found it on CD, of course, but as you can see, the way this album cover here is the design of it, the graphic design. This is the same as this one in some ways. Not familiar with this album by Sonny, and I haven't read the liner notes yet, so I don't know if this is an overview of his music. In fact, I'm not real familiar with Sonny Rollins' music, other than I've seen people, talk about it on the VC, and he does some covers on here, and there's some good players playing along with him. So I was listening to this in the car the other day, and thought it was a really good CD. Kind of reminded me of, Half Price Books always plays good music in their place, and I always thought that kind of reminded me of that type of stuff. But I also picked up this CD here, which is a Special Effects double feature. This is on the GRP label. Now Gary Cosmic Pickle has talked about these guys, and he did a really long he has quite a few albums by these guys, and he's also talked about this one guy here, George Agenda, which is one of the reasons I picked this CD up, was just that Gary was talking about them, and I wanted to see what they were about. It's real smooth jazz. It's real easy listening to listen to. Like a lot of this stuff on this particular label here, this GRP label. So yeah, I was real happy to get it. But yeah, if you wanted to hear, and there's some good players on here as well. It's produced by Dave Grusin, and it features a lot of jazz people on here, like Mark Egan. I believe he plays bass. But yeah, if you're into lighter jazz, just something it's pleasant to hear. It's a good album. Now here the other day, Carm had shown the Environments album, and he was talking about what's the album that you have that's got the most recorded material on it. And I thought it was Todd Rundgren's A Wizard of True Star, which that may have some longer cuts on it, but the one I was thinking of was this one here. This is a Todd Rundgren's Initiation, and it says on here that I believe this is the one. Maybe it's on the insert. It said that there's over an hour's worth of music on here. Yeah. This is the one. It says, due to the amount of music on this disc, over 1 hour, 2 points must be emphasized. First, if your needle is warm or damaged, it will ruin this disc immediately. Second, if the sound does not seem loud enough on your system, try re-recording the music onto tape. And then he says, by the way, thanks for buying the album. But this is a really good Rundgren album. I have several of his albums. And by the way, I was watching Access or AXS TV here the other day, and Todd Rundgren had a live concert on there, and it was a really recent concert that he has done. It's just a four-piece. Todd was playing guitar and singing, of course, and all four of them sing, even the drummer. It was Todd on guitar, the drummer, a bass player, which I think also played guitar as well, and a keyboardist. But golly, you know, it was a really great concert to see him again on TV, even though it was on TV. I'd actually seen him a lot in concert live way back about when this album was coming out. But that guy's got oodles of talent, man. He can play and sing. All those guys in that band could really sing great. I really hope to see that concert again because it really brought back a lot of memories. And we're talking about concerts. Austin City Limits had Robert Plant on there here the other night. That was another great concert. If you think Robert Plant's too old to rock, he's not, believe me. He was with an all-new group, and this is an older album by him. But I was playing it the other day after I'd seen that concert. But the concert that he did was pretty incredible. You know, he did some Zeppelin numbers, of course, and had some numbers where there was a musician on there that played some kind of a African instrument of some kind. It had strings on it, and the guy would pluck it and everything. It was pretty amazing. But if you go Google Austin City Limits and Robert Plant, you know, if I can think of it, I'll add it to my video below. But I believe you can still watch that concert online, or maybe you can catch it on TV on PBS. But yeah, it was a really great concert. And then going back to some finds at the record show, I found this one. This is on the Pablo label, and Two for the Road by Herb Ellis and Joe Pass. This is just two old pros on guitar playing duo with each other, and they cover there's some Ellis and Pass songs that they had written together on here. But there are also some covers like Lady Be Good by George and Ira Gershwin. And let's see what else. Well, there's some other covers by some other people on here, but I don't recognize. Let's see. Love for Sale, it says Porter, so that must be Cole Porter. And oh, I don't know, there's just some other ones. There's Seven Come 11, which is by Goodman Christian. I don't know if that's Charlie Christian, but at either rate, you know, it's a good album. I was happy to find it. I like a lot of these albums on the Pablo label. Also found this one. This is by Charlie Bird, Brazilian Bird. Not a lot to say about this album either, other than Charlie Bird is a pretty amazing guitarist. I like any of. I have a couple albums by him, and this is just one more I could add to my collection. This has a lot of like Brazilian, as the title implies, songs on it, kind of samba, bossa nova type stuff, and it's real pleasant to hear. This will be real good to listen to during the summer, I'm sure. I found this one by Arthur Blythe. I think that's how you say his name. The name of the album is Dada. And I don't know a lot about Arthur Blythe, other than he plays saxophone, sax, and there are you know, he's accompanied by other musicians. I didn't even look on here who all is on here. There's Cecil McBee. Let's see who else. Well, I don't recognize anybody other than Cecil McBee off the top of my head. But it's a real pleasant album. I've heard some of his other albums, particularly when he started out. They get a little bit. He would get a little bit free jazz. This one is a little bit more later in his career, and he's a little bit more mainstream on this. But it's still a real pretty good album to have by him. I was happy to find it. But yeah, Arthur Blythe. I've only heard this thing once. Need to listen to it again. And then I bought this here by Gil Evans, Pacific Standard Time. This is now if you've heard any of Miles Davis albums, I was going to bring some Miles Davis albums in here that I have. Some Gil Evans orchestrates a lot of the Miles Davis albums. Where's that CD? See if I can find the ones. They have his name on there. I think one of them is Sketches of Spain, if I'm not mistaken. But there's some other ones that he has done as well. And he has also done some orchestration for some of the CTI artists. But this has some solo work by Cannonball Adderley, Art Blakely, Paul Chambers, Steve Lacy is on here with some other people. It says it's a Blue Note reissue, and like I said, it's a 2-record set, but was happy to get it. And you know, it was a little dirty, had to clean it up, but it plays pretty well. And you know, he does some there's some covers on here as well, but yeah, overall really good album. Was happy to get it. This might have been my favorite find of the record show, actually. Nicely orchestrated, of course, and the songs are all really good too. I've only heard it once. I'm sure it'll be a grower for sure. Then I found this one, which is different and apart from what I've been showing, kind of. But this is a Jimmy Spears album, Isle of View. I've seen this shown on the VC community from time to time. A little bit of a psych edge to it, but really kind of more of a, I don't know, pop maybe. I had this a long time ago, I mean many years ago, and didn't really care for it. I mean, I kind of liked it, but not enough to keep. And I was real curious to how this album would sound to me now, and actually it sounds a lot better. If I'm not mistaken, it's kind of a little bit orchestrated, and you know, Jimmy Spears plays the guitar and piano, and then there's other guitars, viola, a violin, flute, bass, other guitars, piano, congas and drums. I don't recognize any of the other musicians on here, but you know, it's a lyrical album. He's got he sings on it and everything. He's got the words on the back of the album here. But yeah, I don't know. I got it at a good price, and so I was happy to pick it up. And then I also found this is one of the kind of the duds I found, and I hate to say that, but this is Jeff Beck's Who Else? Who Else by Jeff Beck. And I'll end up getting rid of it. I just not in the mood for this. It's loud, real loud music, kind of you know, hard driving music. I'll listen to it again just to see what I think, but I put it on, heard the first 2 songs, and took it off again. I've got several Jeff Beck albums, you know, like, oh golly, I forget the names of them. The early ones with, he did some with Rod Stewart and Blow by Blow, you know, during that era. But I wasn't really impressed by that album. You know, your mileage may vary. Then I found this here and bought it on a whim. This is a Pseudo Buddha, 3 Months in Fat City, which is an odd title. And it's volume 4. But I was looking at it, and they play like sitars and stuff like that on here, and I was real curious as to know what this was like. They play real unusual instruments aside from their synthesizers, but they play you know, lap steel guitars, devices, little green flute, Aztec clay flute, soprano sax, bongos, tablas, and just a whole variety of musical instruments. And was real curious about this group. The odd thing about it is this band is from out of San Antonio, and there are 4 tracks on it, and they're just from the dates. One is September, October, and 2 dates in November. And I think all this is live. I couldn't find a lot online about it, but you can actually sample this album on YouTube. They got the whole album if you want to hear it. But I was kind of surprised by it. The only thing, the only detraction from it is all the songs kind of sound the same, but they're done and played pretty well. And you know, if I had been in the band, I would have definitely named it something different other than 3 Months in Fat City. It's kind of a, I don't know, appalling name, or not a very good name, I'll put it that way. And I guess they were trying to go after some kind of a psychedelic, you know, sound or look to themselves. I don't know. But at any rate, it's a fairly interesting album for the price that I bought it at. And you know, I think what they're trying to do, they're kind of a collective, basically, from the little I could read about them online. And they just do dates live and record them and then, you know, put them out on CD. But if I could remember, I'll try and put a link to this album too, in you know, below the video. But a fairly interesting album. They just kind of, you know, they could have done some of the things better, like the title on here, and I don't know, maybe added some liner notes. It just seemed like they kind of put this thing out with that, you know, kind of doomed to fail type approach to it, which, you know, maybe that's what they think, I don't know. But at any rate, you know, out of San Antonio, I thought it was sort of a interesting, odd, you know, CD and band. So, at any rate, that's everything I've got. I did find another book, though. This is a book of Einstein. This is about the same author, Walter Isaacson, that wrote the Steve Jobs book that I posted last time. This is, of course, on Albert Einstein, and I kind of looked through it. The hype sticker says #1 New York Times bestseller, and I kind of thumbed through it to make sure it wasn't like totally over my head, but it kind of looks like he's done this book the way that he did the Steve Jobs book. It kind of starts out with you know, where Einstein was born, which is in Austria, I believe, I read, and you know, his family, and goes on to, you know, where he got married, and then I'm assuming his later career, and coming over to the probably talks about the Nazis and about him escaping that area and coming over to America. But should be a real interesting read as well. So anyway, that's what I picked up at the record show here recently. And hope y'all are enjoying your spring and whatever endeavors you are getting into. And that's all I got for now. I'll be back on a little bit later. We'll talk to you later.